Hello, everyone. Today is September 24th, 2020. This is the Kubernetes Storage SIG meeting. So let's look at the agenda today. For 1.20, the first deadline is approaching. That's Tuesday, October 6th. That's enhancement freeze. So if you have any feature, the cap must be merged by that day. And the second deadline is code freeze. That's November 12th. For any code that is developed in tree, code must be merged by this deadline. So now let's go over our planning spreadsheet. First one is CSI online offline resizing, fix issues. Hamand, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Your voice is a little low. Can you maybe speak closer to the mic?
Is this better?
Yes, much better.
All right. Yeah. So the fixing issues, like we have some issues reported about the PVC being deleted, but resize is pending. That is being, I think KK has taken to work on it, and will we have some other issues, I think. And then we had the read write many expansion that we could not do in 119. It's we already have a PR. I already have a PR, so I just need to update it. So those are things that will be working. So yeah, this is in progress.
Okay. Anything else?
As for the next one, that is the
Okay.
recovering from resize failure.
Yeah.
So this one we had a, I don't know, we had a call with Tim and Jordan. I think it was already recorded, and the thing is that the suggestion that they gave us was recommendation was to follow the inline pod resizing cap closely, but that cap is still evolving actually. Not yet sure how. Like for example, there's a talk to use resize sub resource to capture some of the intermediate state. I don't know where it is right now, but it is still in progress. And then second one was the guidance we got from Tim was like, if it is possible, then if the resize failed with a terminal error, then it should be, if it is possible, then give back the quota to the user. That's kind of very tricky to do correctly because we don't have enough error codes from CSI driver to determine terminal and non-terminal errors for resize failures. And we have to design something proper for this. So this task will be converted into, I think, like a design task for 120. I don't think we'll have an implementation in 120.
Thank you. So next one is a snapshot. So I'm working on updating the cap. Need to follow the new cap structure. And we also need to figure out how to do the production readiness review since that's pretty new. And also Shangchen is working on a design doc on the metrics support in Snapshot controller. That's that for Snapshot. The next one is the non-recursive volume ownership. Aman, Jan.
Yeah, so we have updated, I have updated the cap, and we had a call about this last week, I think. And uh, the the new plan of using PVC status is not something we are going to pursue. Rather than we'll just fall back to what we had before as alpha implementation. That means we can move existing alpha implementation to beta in this release actually. But we are still waiting to hear from Clayton or someone about the SLNX handling, because uh, the FS group adds a FS group change policy field to pod spec, and we wouldn't be able to merge that field with SLNX. So that's where it is. So, but we just have to update the existing cap. The cap was already updated to target beta in 119. We just didn't do it. implement anything because we are waiting on ASL Linux. So in this 120, I would like to change this target to beta rather than alpha. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And another important news on that one is like for Azure file or some other volume types which apply GID as a mount option. We have started a discussion in CSI community to possibly update node stage node publish RPC calls.
Okay. This next one, secure link, is this related to the first one or is it different? Do you have a different update for this one? Secure Linux recursive permission handling.
Yeah, so SL Linux is different, but at the same time, like in 119 when Jan wrote the proposal and wrote the implementation, Clayton and bunch of other folks commented like on different things, and there was a thought like that can the new field be that part security policy field merged for both SL and FS group, but given the status what we know today, I don't think we can merge it, so it's a different so we'll have to treat this as a different design for now. And Jan, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, correct.
Okay, so this one is, should this still be design? This one, we should say design, right? Is this target status, is this okay?
Yes, Linux, yes, it is design.
Okay. This one should be beta already. Did you just say beta? This one should be changed to beta, the one above FS group?
Yes.
Come on, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this one just design. All right, thank you. Next one is new design for bonafide permission handling. We don't have a dev lead. Ben, are you looking at this? Ben's not here? Oh, okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm the reviewer, right? What was the topic?
Okay. This is the new design for volume file permission handling. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of overlap between this and the one that Hemant was talking about with the recursive permission handling.
Oh,
I have been following some developments in the Linux kernel. I think that they're trying to rework. I mean, this is a known problem all the way down at the kernel layer. Like, it just stinks that when you do mapping of user IDs at the container layer, your FS IDs get all messed up. And ultimately, I think we were going to be unhappy until the kernel offers a new facility to do this better. So I am just paying attention to that, and I guess when there is something we can use, I will push for using it. But I don't think we will. I mean, anything is going to be a hack until the kernel does this right. That's my opinion.
Okay, so this one we don't have a dev lead anyway, so okay, so just leave it like this. Next one, file permission handling for Windows. This one have a...
So this one, I do like ask around in SIG Windows, and so at first I think basically we say we seems don't need any actions, at least for now. But later I think someone probably ask Microsoft team, and they think again there might some issue, but we haven't got time to investigate. So right now I open up issue, I think in Microsoft container side, and slowly we will we'll have time trying to find the right people to talk about more details for it. But so far, through testing, right, the current use cases, we seems no issues. Yeah.
Okay, so just more investigation needed?
Yeah.
Okay. thank you. CSI Autotree read-only handling. So this one is targeting GA 1.20. Do we have a humble here? And provision is the last update.
I think I need to sync up offline with him. He's in a different time zone.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Next one is the storage capacity tracking. Do we have Patrick here? Okay, looks like Patrick's not here. Michelle, Yang, do you know, is there any planning for this in this release?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
We sent email to SIG Storage, but there was not much discussion there.
That one was, but the ephemeral volume, right? Is that this one too?
Yeah, but they're kind of related.
Oh, together. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay. Now the next one, PVC inline. So that's probably just we'll just save this one. Email sent to SIG Storage. Discussion. So it's mainly to see how those two options can be combined, right? The generic FM volume and the CSI inline volume, those two.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. Next one, spreading over field domain. So this, we don't have any update. This is because this one is dependent on the next one, which is volume group. So I need to update the cap. So we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. There were some concerns on the API, but I think right now we're trying to just address it by handling it in the controller. Next one, CSI Autotree, move the iSCSI driver. So.
Yeah, I still haven't had a chance to go through these three.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to go and deprecate the repos.
Okay, so that covers all three, fiber channel and the flux adapter, right? Okay, so next one is Moveout GFS Provisioner. Do we have humble? I think it's probably not here. Is this in progress? Or is there any update on this? Does anyone know? Jan, do you know?
I think this is in in progress, but I haven't gotten the latest on it yet, so I'll sync up with Humble.
Okay. Thank you. Next one is Moveout NFS Provisioner, and those next two are together, I think, and the NFS Client Provisioner. Karen, are you there?
Yes. Yes. So the first one, CI work is still pending, but we have started getting the new contributions into the migrated repo.
Okay.
We can leave the status as that is.
Okay.
Second one, the migration is completed now. CI work is what is pending as well here now.
Okay. CI working, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
CI pending, sorry.
Oh, pending. Oh, okay. Thank you. Next one is volume snapshot namespace transfer.
Hi there.
Hi.
This is Mike. Yeah, so this has become a bit of urgent thing for me and my team at Red Hat. I've started working on a kind of reference implementation for my project for Kubert. So I'm hoping I can maybe share that with you guys, and at least it'll be implemented based on the KEP that I published a million years ago. And hopefully maybe once this is complete, I can point you guys to it and go over, we can have a review on the KEP again. But yeah, expect to see some work here.
Okay. So are you going to propose a new KEP or modify the existing one, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should probably have some sort of review. Although I heard you say earlier there's a new KEP format. I may have to look into that. Yeah,
you can just look at the KEPs that got merged in 1.19. You will see basically they're just in a folder. You have to have an issue and create a folder for that, and then it's just a certain format you need to convert your old KEP to. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so I should have more info next meeting.
Okay, so this one should this one still be designed, right? The in 1.20?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next one is the volume house. So I think for this release, we'll just be working on making sure we add all the E2E tests that are required to make sure this is stable. I start to think about, next step, how are we going to use this volume house information? But I think that will need some thought and need some design discussions. So next one is the generic data populator. Ben?
Yeah, so I have a prototype working. The next step is I need to decide if I should update the old KEP to try to take it to beta, or just make a new KEP to take it to beta. I don't know if anyone has any opinions on that, but I need to make that decision and then do it and get it reviewed next week. But I have a working implementation that uses the validating admission webhook to make sure that that we don't create volumes for data sources that aren't going to work, and that actually works great. So, so I think there's a good chance this will get to beta. It's got to do the KEP work by the deadline.
Okay, great. So right now they are kind of strict, like you have to have an issue associated with everything. So if you write a new KEP, then you need a new you need to have a new issue, because we're getting this problem with the volume snapshot. We have this KEP for validation hook added in the same folder, and then now they're asking you to create another folder for that one. So it's like we'll have
my preference is just to modify the existing KEP. I don't know if that's acceptable or not. Does anyone know if you have an accepted KEP for alpha and you add stuff to it for beta, is that kosher?
Yes.
Okay. So I will try that, and if I get pushback from the guys that care about KEPs, I could do something else, but that's what I'll do first.
Okay, thank you. Next one is Cozy. Do you have anyone?
Yeah. This is Srini. Actually, the reviews are going good. There are a few reviews this week. We are actively addressing them. Hopefully, we try to meet the deadline. KEP is updated to the new format, and we got some reviews this week. We are addressing them. And on the code side, we have defined some milestones and building a common controller lib so that can be used by the central controller and the sidecar. So it's all going good. Hopefully, we will be able to address all the issues by next week before the KEP deadline. Please do review anyone on this call. I request that review the CAP and see if there are any use cases we haven't addressed. And the call for the CAP review is after this call. Please do join. That's all.
Thank you. Next one is FS group support in CSI.
This one has no updates. I'm hoping to start progress on it early next week.
Okay. So the plan is make this beta in.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So you need to yeah.
Wasn't this already beta in 119, Christian?
This was alpha in 119. We still need an end-to-end test.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think that's the only thing missing to make it beta.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, I just need to see that. Add. Thank you.
Actually, one thing quickly. So if we add new values to the enum, that's considered backward incompatible change, and we might need new enums to that the FS group policy in CSI driver field. So, Michelle or Jan, do you have any opinion on that? Like, do you need to wait before we move it to beta, or it's okay to add new enum values to a beta API? Or we can
yeah, let's discuss that offline.
All right.
Thank you. So next we have a few CSI migration related items. The first one is CSI Migration Core. I believe John volunteered for this one. Is John on the call? I don't see his name here. Thought he signed up for this. Saryan, have you heard from him? I think he said he has a setup. I remember that's the last update I remember.
Sorry, which item was this?
This is the CSI Migration Core. I remember John sent out some emails.
Yeah, so John started an email thread offline. He is starting to explore this area. I think it's mostly ramping up, trying to understand where the existing pieces are. He's going to need help from us to onboard.
Thank you. Okay, vSphere CSI Migration is Debian on the call. So I think we are still waiting for all the backports. There's still a few pending. So still work in progress. And next one is the CSI Migration Azure Disk. Michelle, do you?
I've seen Andy sending out PRs for Azure File, I think. Okay. I think for Azure Disk. I did see he enabled Windows tests for Azure Disk, and so far they look good. So that's a good sign that maybe we don't need to do a lot of work to support CSI migration on Windows. I've seen some PRs he's been sending out for Azure File. I think his focus is going to be getting Azure File to beta this release.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, so it's actually cover both. Next one is GCE CSI migration. Is Matt working on this? Saad, Michelle.
Yeah, this is still on Matt's plate. We're syncing up today to discuss this.
Okay. Next one is AWS System Migration. So do you have an update on this one?
No update from the AWS side. Need to follow up with Matt Wong.
Okay, thank you. I think the next one is OpenStack Cinder. Do we have any update on this? I think John said he's not working on this anymore, so we don't have a demo.
Yeah, so we need to find an owner for the Cinder CSI migration. If there are folks on the call who are interested, please let us know.
Thank you. Next one is System Migration for Ceph, FS and Ceph RBD.
And this one, again, I need to sync up with Humble on his tasks, get an update on them.
Thank you. Next one is, okay, so those are the cross SIGs. First one, SIG scalability, immutable secrets, and config maps. Plan is to bring to GA. Do we have any update? Are they working on this? Sada, Michelle, do you know?
I haven't seen anything yet. Michelle, do you know?
No, I haven't had a chance to sync up with Wojtek. I'll go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Next one is, okay, so this is the SIG apps. PBC created by SIG side will not be automatically removed. So I think KK just sent out some updates. Haven't read it yet. He can't attend the meeting, but then he said he has some status. The first one, okay, said he addressed current outstanding comments, and then there's still some outstanding issue, how to handle the situation where pods get deleted explicitly by a user. So I need to do a POC, and then the goal is to make it in time for the enhancement freeze time. Okay, so that's this one, and then there's another one. So yeah, he has two. The first one is the deletion issue. The second one is volume expansion. So he said, the second one says no update. It's not tracked, but part of the resizing issue. Okay, but work in progress. So that's from KK on those two. And then the next one, the execution hook, well, actually this one now is called container notifier. So so I do have an update. So so Xiangqian and I worked on a CAP. The CAP is submitted. And so now Tim, Jordan, and Seth from Signode are all reviewing it. So we also get quite a few other comments on that. So so the plan is to do this in 3 phases. Phase 1 will be adding a inline pod definition to handle comments, and then have a notification API object to request that container notifier. And also the implementation of the controller will be in a separate controller, not in Kubernetes yet. So it's going to be in a separate repo sponsored by Signode. And then phase 2 will be move that logic into Kubernetes, but then also add handling for signals. But that need the CRI changes, so that's why it's not in the first phase yet. And phase 3, we'll see whether we also need to add probe or not. So that's the plan.
Xing,
yeah.
How will an external controller work? Like, how is it even a thing that's?
This is just going to be like daemon set. Just going to be daemon set. So you have to have that on every node, basically.
But I mean, like, is it going to layer on top of like the kube control exec type API to actually run commands?
Yeah. You are still, it's going to still be doing exact. Yeah, it's going to do the same.
Okay. because the whole point of this is that exec is terrible and we want to get away from it, right?
I know. This one looks actually similar to the what we have for execution code.
Yeah, this is just for proof of concept, right? The idea is
Okay.
that longer term it'll be pulled into kubelet.
Okay, and longer term that the eventual solution will be more secure.
Exactly.
And, okay. So as long as someone's thinking about that.
Yeah. I think
that was basically the whole reason this took so long. Is Jordan kind of would push back and said you can't have another controller that has effectively exec permissions, and that we should put this logic in kubelet. The node team who owns the kubelet said, no, wait a minute here. You're increasing the kind of surface area for kubelet. We don't want to do that. And so it was a big fight going back and forth. And so the current status is everyone's agreed, okay, let's do a POC that doesn't modify the kubelet to kind of prove out the ideas and the APIs. And if that looks good as we approach alpha beta, then we can go ahead and pull it into kubelet. Okay.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, so I think the requirement for alpha also include E2E tests. I think still need to figure out that because we need to add those in tree. So okay, so the last item is this util mount split to new repo. Srini?
This is Srini. There is a XXL PR that got merged thanks to Michelle. Now the Kubernetes code base is using mount utils from the staging directory, but there is also external repos that are using util mounts, and because there is no tag on that module, I have problem in submitting a PR. I'm holding off until a tag is put in on that repo so that we can see the source files, Go source files for us to fetch the case.io mount utils. So that's work is in progress, but for the Kubernetes code base, we are using mount utils. I also put out a PR on the utils mount, a README file warning users not to do any PRs on that repo, but start using the utils mount utils. So it's all going good.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so that's all from the spreadsheet. So I think we have a design review today from Xing. Xing, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So if you open that, it's not like a full design review. It's mostly some of initial thoughts about how to handle this, and want to hear some feedback. So as we know, when we design most of the APIs, right, it's very kind of Linux oriented. We only think about the Linux parameters. Now with Windows support come along, so we need to rethink some of the API. And for example, here we have some use cases. You have some volume contains data, and you can access from a Linux node. And also after you finish writing the data and you want to access the data from a Windows node, or vice versa. And another use case is like a concurrent access of data from Linux, a mix of nodes which contains both Linux and Windows, like multi-writer use case. NFS, SMB can support that. And now look at the storage class, right? We have mount options. So if only Linux nodes there, so you put whatever mount option for Linux. And now with Windows comes up, right? And those mount option no longer applicable for Windows node. And if you put there, it will fail to. It's a different mount mechanism, right? It's like a creasing link in Windows, etc. So it won't work. So to solve this issue, we'll be thinking short-term solution, long-term solution. So for long-term, I think our API needs some revise. Not only just this use case, there are other places like facing the similar issue, like both Linux, Windows, when they you have a mix of node pool, and for like power security or maybe also network, there's some parameters that how to provide them like in the same place. And we should have Linux context information and Windows context information. However, changing the API, it's might take a longer time, especially we cannot change it. We can only add it for deprecation policy. So we think about some short-term solutions. There are two ways to handle this. One is the logic can be implemented in kubelet. The other is the logic will be implemented in individual CSI driver. So for example, you have mount options, and we can add some additional information, like prefix, to indicate this is belong to Linux or Unix mount options, or it is belong to Windows. There's an example we show there. And then if we implement inside of kubelet, when kubelet get those mount options, it can parse those strings and figure out these options only apply for Linux nodes. If it is running on Linux node, and it will parse them and pass through to the CSI driver. If it is currently running on Windows node, it can figure out which option should pass to. The other way is this logic will be implemented in each individual CSI driver. So both approach have some pros and cons. So for kubelet side, then kubelet will be the only place we need to change, and driver, they don't need to do anything. So it's easier. A little bit concerned in this approach is whether we can appropriate passing the string. So just in case there are some very strange mount options passed along, will we make some mistakes passing them? And for CSI driver, if we implement CSI driver, then each individual driver need to handle this. And what if they diverge? And also, user need to know exactly how the driver handle this. So currently, we kind of thinking kubelet to implement this logic in kubelet seems better. But we want to hear if there are some other opinions.
So if you do this in kubelet, then kubelet will need to parse in and make a decision whether this is valid or not, right? If it's not valid, then probably just need to fail. Okay.
So basically, if there's some, we have some special prefix, as proposed there, and if it can recognize this string, and then it knows this should be only passed to Linux node if it's running on Linux, and it will ignore the Windows option. And if it is running on Windows, it only take whatever the Windows option there, and ignore the Linux one. Yeah.
So it's basically still user kind of input. It's already have this hint here, so kubelet just look at that. Okay.
Right. User need to provide all the mount options together, because the volume could be used by both Linux and Windows, right? Mm-hmm. So this scenario exists, and the customer might need to kind of share data between Linux and Windows nodes.
Okay.
But if you only give Linux options like right now, and it will fail to mount on Windows.
Yeah.
So I was just curious to know the use case here. Are you saying the Kubernetes cluster is spread across Windows nodes and the Linux nodes? and you need a common storage class that has these mount options. I'm just wondering, like, why? What are the use cases why somebody would do this?
Oh yeah, there's some user like right now with Windows support available. So typically your cluster contains some Windows node and also a number of Linux node. You may not need it if your whole environment only need Windows, but some users have a scenario like they have some application running on Linux, which is writing data to a volume, right? And then some Windows node, they have some workload, right, to access those data to do some other processing. So that's one scenario. And the other multi-writer case, yeah, there's just some application, right? They run Linux and Windows. They want to access the same set of data. Right now, we do see some like use cases from users. It's really their workloads.
If you have a cluster with only Windows nodes today, does the mount options work for it?
Typically, we don't have any mount options, special mount options. If you put there, I think it will have a problem. Yeah, because it will. Oh, so for it's up to the driver. So if your driver ignore mount options, then it will work. If your driver do take your mount options, and then it will have trouble issue.
Do we know if any drivers today use mount options for Windows?
So for, I think, for example, SMB NFS, I need to double check, but they take mount options.
Yeah,
so
sure that.
The only concern I have is about backwards compatibility. So if users today have a Windows-only cluster, and then they have a storage class with mount options in it, and it doesn't have this prefix on it, will they break once we add this behavior and we require like Windows mount options to have a prefix? Or is the behavior that if there's no prefix on it, we'll just pass it through regardless of if it's Linux or Windows?
Right. So then I think it won't break any existing behavior. So only if you have prefix, we will like ignore, let's say if it's running on Linux, ignore Windows 1 and only pass Linux 1. If there's no prefix, right, then we just do whatever we are doing right now.
Okay, and then that means that if someone already has the PV and if they want to start using it across multiple OSs, then they would have to recreate a new PV with the mount options using the prefix.
Yeah, if they already use some mount operations. Yes.
I have a question. If this is the only field that needs the prefix or something like that, because I would expect that something in pod has similar issues.
Like I was trying to check, but currently I'm not sure like any other kind of parameters we pass to CSI driver that is it's up to the driver typically. Like I know some driver, let's say password, username, password, right, through the parameters, but I don't know other type of like parameter need to know the context of Linux or Windows.
I meant like Kubernetes API, for example, import if there is some Windows-specific field?
Yes. So most of them, like for example, FS group, right, and also GID, UID, those are only for Linux. There are some fields only for Linux, and there is, I think, related to pod security. For Windows, they just add run as username. I forgot it's only for Windows, or it can work for both Linux and Windows. It maybe can work for both Linux and Windows. We don't have much like a special API spec only for Windows right now, but we have, let's say, for example, webhook to validate. There are some fields not make sense for Windows, so we'll fail to create those objects. And like I said, overall, I think from API design side, we didn't think much about Windows when we designed. So that's why we have some Linux only like spec directly on the top level.
I wonder if it would make sense to make a special field for Windows mount options.
So that is the changing the API, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the storage class. So overall, not only this particular issue, when I think about storage class design, initially, right, the storage class mainly for provisioning, like what type of storage you want to provision for dynamic provisioning feature. And so you specify provisioner and you specify what kind of storage, it is fast or slow premium or the other type. And later we kind of overload storage class with some, because it's just convenient to use, right? We put mount options there. So it can apply to a set or the PVC that is reference this storage class. However, should we really put mount options there? For example, FS group.
Mount options get copied to the PV after creation. So they don't, you can delete the mount option from storage class afterwards.
Right. So I'm just thinking, for example, for FS group, those kind of parameter also relate to how you use the volume, right? In pod spec, and also access mode, it's also related to how you use the volume to different places. Basically, we kind of scatter some. So there is two phases, right? How you create volume and then how you use the volume. When you create volume, you don't know how to use it. So that's simpler, like what kind of information you put there. And then later, how you use it, you might use it in different ways. And the information, how you use them, I feel right now is kind of scattered, some in pod spec, some in storage class. Yeah, it will copy it to PV, and then some in PVC. I just think how we might consolidate some of the how to design the spec. But that is for like a long-term solution to change the API. If you think right now we don't want to do anything, then we have to wait for add some mount or some particular field for Windows. And we keep adding something over to the storage class. So overall, for example, the proposed kubelet handling is any other concerns?
About the kubelet handling, sorry, I missed the initial conversation. For CSI drivers, doesn't it they just get passed as fields to the driver and the driver applies them? Kubelet doesn't apply mount options for CSI drivers.
Yes, so we're thinking because Linux and Windows, right, is a kind of more like a general problem. So instead of like the driver need to figure out what options belong to Linux, what options belong to Windows, right? Each driver have to handle separate, like in their own way. Is that good to handle it in Kubernetes side? Is that so that the driver don't need to worry about that?
It is the case that kubelet is the thing that pulls the mount options out of the Kubernetes API and hands them to the CSI driver, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think what Xing's proposal here is saying like either we prefix mount options with either like we prefix mount options with the OS, or we have a new field for mount options for Windows, and kubelet will only pass in Linux mount options to the driver, or only pass in Windows mount options to the driver. Or the second proposal is we just pass in every single mount option, and it's up to the driver to figure out which ones are for Linux and Windows are for Windows.
So I get that the biggest problem here is the backwards compatibility concern. We want to do something better for Windows without breaking anyone that's on Linux. Is anyone relying on mount options on Windows today with the way that it works now? Because if they are, then I mean I kind of prefer the whole separate like place to put Windows mount options, like make it a separate field with a different name, and then handle that specially. But if anyone is already using the existing field for something on Windows, then that kind of won't fly.
Yeah, I do remember Azure CSI is using mount options for SMB mounts.
Would there ever be a mount option that would apply to both Linux and Windows?
I don't think so, but I cannot say for sure.
I mean, I don't even know if we document how drivers are supposed to interpret that field. I mean, in principle, it's just text that gets passed from Kubernetes to the node plugin, and the node plugin can do with it what it wants. So you could imagine an implementation that did have some sort of mount options that weren't in the format of like actual Linux mount options, but were just some strings that were meaningful on both Linux and Windows for a specific CSI plugin. And I don't know if the CSI standard precludes doing that. I mean, we don't do that because it seems like a bad idea. But then again, we don't support Windows yet.
From CSI's point of view, it should only pass the mount option that driver can directly apply without going through another hoop and trying to figure out if these are Windows or Linux mount options. So I think in an ideal world, we would like kubelet to somehow determine that if these options apply to Unix operating system, or these options apply to Windows operating system, and then pass the.
I like the prefix approach because it gives you a way to only send it to one or the other if, as the admin, that's what you want. But you can also get the legacy behavior of send it to both just by not prefixing it, which maybe is all the flexibility you need.
Which would break the existing drivers, maybe.
So
no, you would strip off the prefix. Kubelet would strip off the prefix before it sent the options down. So by the time it got to the CSI driver, it would just look like mount options.
Yes, so the thought is we can preserve the existing behavior, right? If you don't put any prefix, then we preserve that. Is that good enough?
I mean, my personal preference would be to like take a step back and design it the way, like the ideal way that you would have designed it if you didn't have to worry about backwards compatibility, and then figure out, like, given that we do have to worry about backwards compatibility, figure out what the closest approximation of that is, or a path towards getting there, maybe in version 2.0 or something.
Right.
but I mean, aside from that, I lean towards the prefix approach because it feels like, I mean, while it looks terrible, it actually, I think, does achieve all the needs.
Hey,
And,
I think we are at the top of the hour and we do have another meeting coming.
oh man.
So, Jean, you want
Real
to
quick,
schedule?
I'll plus one
Okay.
the prefix as well. But yeah, we can do a follow-up meeting if needed.
Right, I will do follow-up meeting if needed. I will also investigate, like see different driver currently how they handles to make sure, yeah, if we break anything.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so Jean, you will schedule some follow-up meetings, right? Maybe send us.
Like we see some issues, like, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it for
Sure.
today. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.